So, the South African Music Awards recently took place at the Gallagher Convention Centre in Midrand. I'm sure by now you've seen other reviews. You've probably also looked up who's won what. Do you know what I mean? As things happen these days in real time, particularly because of the digital revolution. So I was there and I thought maybe I should just come on here and share my experience and certainly what I think is happening insofar as these awards are concerned. So first things first, insofar as events go, it was a well-organized event. It was decent. I knew exactly where to be at any point in time. Getting in and out was seamless. Getting the accreditation was seamless. It was just fine. There were drinks. But the first issue I had was with the lounge, or at least the waiting area. It was just so dark. It was incredibly dark in there. It felt like I was in a nightclub. And I was just struggling to see who's who in the zoo. It was just very dark in there. And then the other issue I had was just certainly with the food. So I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't eat dairy products, cream, cheese, you name it. And certainly the appetizers as we were walking in involved cheesy bits and cream cheese there, and I just stayed away. So I was very hungry by the end of the ceremony, which is when the proper food came out, which is around 10 p.m. So having been there from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I was just famished and hungry. So those are my only pet peeves / criticisms. But the event itself it was just well organized. I just wish that loungy area could have been lit up. And I don't know, maybe that's the vibe. I haven't been out in a very long time. So Thabiso Mazwai emerged as the biggest winner of the night. And certainly in my opinion, it's well deserved. She has just managed to be the era's queen. She came through, if you remember, with Jackknife and Kwaito. Hey, uyahamba, nabuzobuya nini na. Hey, uyahamba. And then there was the Bongo Muffin era. Then there was her solo, debut solo album, Zabalaza. Zabalaz. And then there was Ibokwe. She then ventured into jazz, where she was doing the tribute to all the musical influences, I guess, in her life, and the maestros and the legends. And but we're now at the point where she's dropped Sankofa, which I think we mentioned in previous video. And Sankofa is an incredible album. For me, certainly, it just transports me to a place that I've never been. And I think music needs to do that. It just becomes an experience, and it becomes such a Pan-African experience. I don't know, I just feel like I'm somewhere in West Africa, Senegal maybe, I don't know. But it certainly feels like a project for Africa and perhaps even the world. So I was certainly happy that Thabiso Mazwai won. She took home the award for favorite female artist what do they call it? She took the award for Female Artist of the Year, Best Engineered, Best African Adult Contemporary, Best Produced Album. So she took away 4 awards, but she was nominated for 5. So certainly she was the big winner of the night, and she was there. She was absolutely elated. She told us that she had been attending the SAMA since 1999. And certainly I remember how one of the Sunday papers wrote a story about how Thabiso Mazwai was reading a magazine during one of the ceremonies. But so Thabiso Mazwai did well. I spotted other celebs that I spotted or musicians rather, were Zamajobe, Brenda Mtambo. Like I said, it was just so dark. It was very difficult for me to actually see what was going on half the time. I enjoyed the entertainment. The sound was patchy at best. But the entertainment for me was certainly enjoyable. The performers who hit the stage, Zingumalo and many others, there was a point where, you've probably watched the thing. If you haven't, it's there, it's online, you can catch up. So the event was fine, okay? The event was okay. But what was glaringly obvious was the lack of musicians in attendance, was the lack of celebrities, as it were, which raises a lot of questions. Have musicians checked out of the SAMAs? But if you also look at the timing, it's about, I mean, the Summers happened 11 days before Christmas. And most musicians tend to gig around this time of the year. So, as somebody put it to me, if you have the option to make money, i.e., you've got a paying gig that pays you, I don't know, 50,000 rands, versus another option, which is to attend an award ceremony where you're spending money, getting all glammed up, getting all the couture and whatever else people get to attend these ceremonies. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You'd rather go make the money rather than spend the money. I do think it's a confluence of issues, or there are multiple reasons why a lot of musicians were not in attendance. One of them being that the timing, it's a bit late in the year to have that award ceremony, because historically the Summers were held in April or May. But now this last year they happened in November, which was still late, but it was just before the peak season. And another thing that I observed is that when an artist wins an award and they're not there to receive it, historically a video would get played and the artist would say, "Oh, I'm so grateful. I'm sorry I couldn't be in attendance, but thank you so much for all the love and the support," yada, yada, yada. But I don't even remember seeing one. I just don't remember seeing artists' videos being played and them saying they're incredibly sorry for not being in attendance. So that's the one observation, that the artists were not in attendance. It could also very well be that the artists themselves are boycotting the awards. I don't know if you've read Zakes Bantwini's letter, but Zakes Bantwini penned, I thought, what was really valid criticism, and he himself is a musician, so he's speaking from a place of authority and a place of knowledge and experience. And he was just saying that there have just been many issues. A lot of the artists are just not happy with how the event or the nominations and the awarding is done, or the judging. A lot of the artists are not happy with how the judging is done. And he makes the point that he's not saying that only popular artists should win. It just doesn't bode well for the credibility of the awards when some obscure artist that nobody has heard of takes an incredibly competitive category. But then again, the Summers are a music industry event, and that's where I think the experts and the musicians are assessing each other from peer to peer on the technical abilities. We're just coming in from a very, I don't want to say superficial point of view, but we're coming in from for the most part, a popularity contest point of view. Like, the way I like Zamajobe and I like Tanisa Mazwai, of course I'm going to be rooting for them in their respective categories. And I get so conflicted when they're in the same category, and I just I don't know where to go. But we then rely on the judges to then tell us from a technical and musical perspective, has this album taken this genre to new heights, or whatever the criteria is. So Zakes Bantwini penned, I thought, a well-written letter, and I think the industry needs to respond accordingly. First of all, I think the Department of Arts and Culture needs to take ownership of these awards, because they are a South African thing. They're not just a specific radio station thing or a specific group of people thing. They are the South African Music Awards, and I hate the comparison, but rightly so. People say they are the South African Grammys. So I think they need to be owned, at least by the Department of Arts and Culture, or at least they need to have a heavier touch on how these awards run. From a sustainability point of view, they need to be sustainable. There are many people who are saying, "Oh, do we even need the Summers? Who cares about them? Oh, I didn't even know they were happening." I think we need them. I think we need them. I think we need a space to celebrate excellence. I think we need a platform where excellence and creativity and musicality is awarded and applauded. It is important. It is really and truly important for many reasons, but one of which being that if we don't have artists and we don't have the kind of music that the artists make, I just can't imagine life. I really cannot imagine life without music. And so, at least for me, having attended the event and having observed and thought about what I experienced on the night, I think the world is changing. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is not an abstract thing that someone from somewhere is just feeding into our psyche or baking into our psyche. It is a lived experience. It is something that I've observed, that the world is changing. I remember when I was very young, the summers were literally the hottest thing to happen on the music calendar. And I would listen to a radio station which would send a lot of its DJs, maybe from even Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all the way to Sun City, because that's where they historically took place. They had a very good sponsor in MTN. And I know this because publications would really tell us exactly what was in the goodie bag. Goodie bag was worth a lot of money, or at least the goodies in the bag were just worth it. And so it was a well-funded event. As somebody told me as well, the record companies would also have parties for their artists to celebrate their artists, either leading up to the event or during the event or after the event. So it was just the hottest ticket to have in town. If you were going to the Summers, you were just going to have a good time. And I had never been. This was my first time. So that's what I've always known the Summers to be. The televised event was always the Saturday event, which had the major categories: female artist, best newcomer, best duo group, record of the year, all that stuff. But what I saw was a relatively scaled down affair. Yes, largely due to funding reasons, but also largely to the shift in the way we consume music, the appreciation of things like awards, what we plug ourselves into, or competing priorities, as it were. So I think the world is changing. And what happened at the event was just emblematic of that, the world is shifting. Look at our consumption patterns. I think pre-internet, when we all plugged into radio and television, by and large, we would just land on roughly the same type of content. We would appreciate the same type of artists. We would hear the same songs. Do you know what I mean? There was a common denominator, a golden thread, or a common thread that united us all or binded us to each other. But now we're so fragmented. You listen to your playlist, I listen to my playlist, I plug into the content that I plug into online, and I live in my little ecosystem or echo chamber, and everybody else just becomes foreign. I'm like, who's that? And you're like, but who's that? And so I think that's what's happening. I think actually the TikTok awards probably stand a bigger chance of being massive and huge, because that's where the collective consciousness of the people is at this particular point in time. That's where a lot of the eyeballs are in this attention economy. So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for the Summers, but my takeaway, if you're taking anything away from this, is that we do need an event like this. It cannot be allowed to just die a natural death. Yes, times are changing, but perhaps the whole thing just needs to be repurposed. It shouldn't be abandoned. It should just be repurposed and repackaged to where we are now. So those are just my thoughts on the Summers. I was there. I enjoyed myself by and large. I observed that many artists weren't there. I had a brief conversation with Zama Jobe. She's such a lovely human being, and I do love her music. Again, I'm biased, but we really need to prop the Summers up. We really need to bring back that thing that unites people. Music is a force for good. It unites people, it doesn't divide them. So I wish the musicians themselves could take ownership of this thing and say, not in our name, we're not going to allow this thing to die a natural death. Please let me know in the comments if you've attended the awards, or at least you've watched them. What do you think? Do we still need them? Is it time to move on and find the next big thing?